So my name is Karl Hallding. I'm from the Stockholm Environment Institute. I have worked with China since almost 30 years. I've followed this incredible rise of a giant nation. The work that we have done at the Stockholm Environment Institute is mainly, particularly over the last, say, 5 to 10 years, have been to explain why China takes certain positions on issues that are relating to the environment. And our strength is to contextualize these issues, to put them in a broader political context. So what I'm going to do here today is actually try to contextualize the increasing interest that have been shown from China to be a part of what is happening up in the Arctic. I will round off with a number of trying to sum up some of the conclusions on how China is dealing with the Arctic. But I will, as I said, I will actually start with the backdrop because I think it is important to understand the deeper, so to say, ramifications of why a certain country begin to act in an increasingly hot area in many ways, like the Arctic has become. So it is broadly what the hype about this is about China's increasing footprint. So we see this anywhere in the world, and it's not limited to the Arctic. I think when you work within the Arctic Council, you see China coming in and demanding to take a part, and but this is just reflected just anywhere in the world in any area of policy. This is the Hallding. This is the icebreaker, which I guess many of you have read stories about. It toured the northeastern route this summer. A lot of hype around that. The fact that Hallding actually toured up in these waters, several times before that, and has not been really mentioned. It seems like this was the first time they were up there, but that's not the case. China has, of course, had an increasing interest in polar research and polar presence since quite a long time. Now, let me backtrack. So, what is this about? Why are they there? Well, of course, this is one of the key reasons why China is interested in Arctic, the melting polar ice cap. And we see here this trend, very clear trend of diminishing summer ice coverage, which opens up opportunities for China, as we shall discuss later. The other curve is going the other direction. This is the World Bank Commodity Price Index. You see a trend which is very clearly going upward on, soon to say, any kind of commodities. This is the market's reflection of a scarcity, growing scarcity situation with regard to almost any kind of fundamental global resources, whether those are physical resources or renewable resources or crumbling ecosystem services. China, of course, play a major role in pushing these indices upwards. Let's go back 10 years to early 2000s. This is a time when China's exponential economic development suddenly reaches this knee on the exponential curve, and the total volume of the Chinese economy is still growing by 10% per year, and the total volume is becoming massive. And we have noticed that globally, China has gone from having been the miracle booming economy to, they're taking our resources. And it happened at the same time as China domestically suffered crunches in supply of resources. 2002, 2003, serious problems with energy or power supply, electric power supply, huge blackouts, which actually changed some of the fundamental political environment and political drivers within the Chinese broader political context, both when it comes to international politics but also domestically. This is the time when China started to increase rapidly its oil imports. This is the time when Chinese domestic production of oil reaches a plateau while demand is increasing rapidly. This is also a time when China is revamping its policies for energy security policies. They are setting up a goal to reduce energy intensity by 20% within the 5-year period of the 11th 5-year plan from 2006 to 2010. And successful in that endeavor, they decide to go about a similar goal for the current 5-year plan. Now the numbers are a bit lower. Some of the low-hanging fruit have already been taken, so the goal is now 18 or 16% for the coming 5-year period in terms of reducing energy intensity. At the same time, there are, as you're probably aware of as well, there are strong policies to shift to a more renewable portfolio of a mix of energy for domestic supply in China. This is also to reduce the demand on imports. And it's demand on imports which is the import demand, the growing import demand, which is a real dramatic issue for the Chinese leaders. Here we see how Chinese oil imports are fairly well correlated to the global, the world market price of oil. This is debated how much the Chinese increasing purchases have pushed the oil price up. I think it's a substantial contribution to increasing oil price. Of course, there are other factors as well that push the oil price up, and China is not the only buyer. But China is a buyer with increasing needs also in the future. These are figures very new. It's a book that is just out on the bookshelves that shows how researchers at the China National Petroleum University views the future oil demand situation for China. The blue line here is China's own oil production. You see here it's a plateau and it's going to fall. China is now reaching its peak in oil production. China was a net oil exporter up to early 1990s, but since then, as you see the demand curve here, there is an increasing wedge of required oil imports. Now, the problem when it comes to international oil market is not necessarily peak oil or not, but it's the fact that less and less oil is coming out on the international market. So this is also, again, this is the calculations from Chinese researchers on oil available on international markets. As you see, there's a peak here already in 2012, and there will be less and less oil available for a country like China that need to import more. The dramatic wedge here is the red wedge, is the required oil import for China that cannot be met by projections of available oil available on the international market. And Chinese researchers says that 2017 is the magic date. From 2017 onwards, there will not be enough oil to supply what is needed in China to continue its economic development. So this is a real headache for China, a fundamental resource constraint for the whole development project. Now, most people say, but China have a lot of coal. Well, it's equally bad here. China do not have the picture here about a coal peak is not really contended. Most international analysts agree on this coal peak and the fact that China is rapidly reaching its coal peak. This is also something you see on Chinese production figures over the last 10 years and the balance between import and export. You see this, the left-hand side here shows exporters and The right-hand side shows importers. This is the change that occurred from 2007 to 2009, and you see what happened to China. China had gone from a substantial exporter to a substantial importer. Today, China is by far the world's largest importer of coal. This will continue in the future if China is going to keep up its economic development. So, as you see, there are crucial and fundamental resources constraints in the Chinese development project, and these constraints are of course also what we are worried about in terms of what China is prepared to do in the Arctic. But it may not be as simple as we tend to think as China as a threat. I jumped this. This is a figure that shows the where China's outward investment on energy resources are landing. Of course, you see a lot of investments here in the Middle East, but also this is coal from Australia, deep sea oil investments in Brazil, but substantially also acquisitions in North America, mostly in North America to secure technology supply for China. The growing profile of China here is not something that is limited, as I said, to the Arctic. This is a picture from where the Copenhagen Accord final text revisions were made between China in cooperation with Brazil, India, South Africa, in the basic group, striking a deal with President Obama. So here's another arena for similar type of increased profile for China, taking trying to defend its opportunity to continue its development, to defend its global interests. In this case, quite successfully. Another such forum where China is operating to defend its international interests is the BRICS constellation. Again, pretty much the same countries: China, India, Brazil, South Africa, and here with Russia. The BRICS is about the counterbalance to the American hegemony in international economic affairs. Well, coming back to the Arctic, which is the topic for today here. So how does China look upon its role, its potential in the Arctic? And China is seeing itself as an Arctic outsider, and that's very clear in the way China looks at the Arctic. And they are also, of course, standing behind sovereign rights in the international domain generally. What they do call themselves near Arctic, because the northern parts of China are not, maybe not so very far from Arctic parts of Siberia, for example. When it comes to the Arctic Council, China sees the Arctic Council as one of the main, or maybe the main avenue for it to gain influence, or to be part of what's happening in the Arctic. And it wants to have this permanent observer role to make sure that it is invited to meetings, and to ensure that it is not excluded from processes where it hopes maybe in the future it would come to have an opportunity to affect things also as an observer. But I would say the key interest of China in the Arctic, in the Arctic scene, is not to secure delivery of resources. It is rather, I would say, first of all, the implications of climate change and the implications for China and other countries globally of the changes, the climate change implications in the Arctic area. China rejects the idea that Arctic states alone should have decision right to what is happening in the Arctic, and particularly as it claims to be affected as many other countries around the world. So the climate change aspect here is important to China, and particularly how China is acting presently. Then it is, of course, the issue of economic opportunities here. And what China is the entry point here for China is to consider the concern about the status of international waters. So the law of sea, will that grant rights to the Arctic countries in the outer continental shelves, for example? What is going to happen there? That's an area where China is concerned, as many other countries. And they stress the need for a balance between the Arctic states and other countries in the world to have a influence and right to utilize what is coming up in terms of when the ice cap is melting. There is, and this economic interest is not, should not be understood as China want to go there and take up resources and bring it back to China, although China have this enormously difficult resource supply situation. It's more a matter of the interest, the economic interest of Chinese companies, to secure the opportunity for Chinese companies to be able to play a role in this scene. Now, what we have seen the last couple of years is that the tone from China has changed a lot. Before 2011, it was much more assertive, even hawkish at times. But since the Arctic Council's second deferral of decisions of permanent observership, then Chinese Arctic scholars, particularly, then have been taking a much more soft tone. And there is a definite concern that overly proactive statements will risk China's opportunities to play a role in the Arctic. One wants, and this is also add an argument for why China is very keen not to make any sort of assertive statements about resources exploitation. China keeps a very, very low profile on these issues, as they do with other sensitive issues around the world, like land grabbing, for example. China has a very strict policy for Chinese companies when they go out not to invest in land resources. They are told to invest in mineral resources and energy resources, but not land resources, as that is seen as being too sensitive in the global debate. So to conclude on what China is doing, the Arctic is, although we may see China's arrival as something threatening, the Arctic is not a priority area of Chinese foreign policy, not at all. And the stream of visits to Nordic countries last year may reflect that China is interested in Nordic technologies and a lot of other things, not necessarily connected to the Arctic. China, as everyone knows, pays a lot of attention to sovereignty, and China wants to see its own proclaimed sovereign rights in, for example, the South and East China Seas. So that would be severely compromised if they take a completely different position up in the Arctic waters. So I would say that in the near or the midterm future, there is nothing pointing towards China being more assertive in the Arctic, but rather that they would like to use diplomatic means to make sure that they have some sort of foothold and that they are not ousted from what's happening in the Arctic. So if we think about it, what is it that China is interested in up here? Well, climate change is something which is instrumental for China to involve themselves in. You know, that's kind of good. We want to protect things, and we want to make sure that climate change is not going out of hand. So involving themselves in different types of research efforts to follow what is happening is something China is keen to do. And as I said, China is not keen to be seen as a resource grabber up there. I think what is key to China in what's happening up in the Arctic is to secure its supply routes. And we see here, this is the main supply route for majority of Chinese oil and other resource imports. Some is also coming down from Indonesia and Australia and overseas from South America. But a lot of it, more than 50%, is coming through the Malacca Strait here. And China is extremely vulnerable. You know, someone turning off the taps here, and to turn off the Chinese economy within a month. So for China, it's key to diversify supply routes. And here you see the Chinese view of the world seen from the Arctic. This is what China is really keen to secure. Its opportunity to do shipping with Europe and North America through the Northern Sea routes. Thanks a lot. Sorry, I should also, of course, mention this report. This is a separate report. China's Arctic Aspirations came out as late November here. So this is anything you need to know about China's role in Arctic today, you could read in this excellent report by Linda Jacobson and Jing-Shu Peng. None of them are at CIPRI right now. Linda is at the Lowy Institute in Australia, and I don't know where Jing Chao is, but they both associate. Huh?
Studies in Japan.
He's in Japan now, yeah. So what I could contribute here is more of the contextual ramifications. These people know everything in detail what China is doing.